time where there's obviously an intense debate about what's happening in American politics. That's probably an understatement of the day. But I wanted to start this conversation off about kind of talking about this rebellion in both the Republican and Democratic parties. And what do you think is the seed of that? Maybe we can start with you, Ann, about kind of what's happening on the Republican side of things, but we've also seen that a lot on the Democratic side as well.
I assume it's the same on the Democrat side. I think more about the Republican Party, my party, and it's been ignoring the voters. I mean, the idea of political parties is we have basically a two-party system. If you want to have an influence, you belong to Democrats or Republicans, and the deal usually is, okay, this means a lot to you, it doesn't mean much to me, so I'll go along with you on that, and then you give me this. Well, for at least 30 years in the Republican Party, it's beginning to look like the rich, the plutocrats, and the Wall Street get 100% of what they want, and what ordinary voters get zero. They won't give us anything on the border. They won't give us anything on trade. I mean, my own party, they just keep saying screw you to their voters, and all we care about are the donors, and we need the money to run the campaigns. And I think there is a lot of this going on with the Democratic Party, though I don't fixate on it as much, but I'm sorry, I think Bernie Sanders is right with Hillary, but let's see those speeches to Wall Street. Both parties are serving the rich and not serving the voters, and I think what we're going to see, well, we'll find out, but as the same thing happening with Brexit, the voters are coming back.
So before we get to Van Jones, let me give my reaction to Ann Coulter. And that's exactly right. This is what we've been saying for years. But what happens in the Republican Party? They always kept pushing the what? The establishment candidates, right? It was always like, who was next in line? Dole. Then it was, in terms of Dole, then it was, McCain. And after McCain is, Romney. I mean, these are just, it's sort of like the good old boys network, and Ann is talking exactly right, that it's both parties. And that was Donald Trump. He saw that. I mean, he was in the private sector, and he had to deal with both. He had to deal with Democrats, he had to deal with Republicans as well. But the fact of the matter is, Ann brings it up, that both parties are at fault here, and they really were screwing over. And it really is no more Democrat versus Republican, conservative versus liberal, right versus left. No, it really is the elitists and the establishment versus the regular average American person, what we call flyover country. That's what Ann's talking about. Let's see what Van Jones has to say, because I think there's going to be some agreement on this, folks, believe it or not.
Do you see that same thing happening in the Democratic Party? Is that what you think the Bernie Sanders kind of uprising is all about?
Look, folks are pissed. People are sitting on a white hot stove, and they've been screaming for a long time, and nobody's responded. And so I think I didn't endorse either of the candidates, but I was very inspired by the Bernie Sanders rebellion, because I think that both political parties signed off on these terrible trade deals. They both said that if you just do what we say, if you just do it our way, trust me, you're going to be better off. Now, the reality is, if you want to be honest, so in some ways, people are better off. You can go to Walmart and get cheap stuff, but the beneficiaries of globalization are diffuse and ungrateful. The victims are concentrated and pissed, okay? And that's what's driving this thing in both parties. I think the difference, though, is you said two things. You said the border and you said trade. And I think that shows a little bit of the difference. When you guys talk about trade, I love it. You guys talk about NAFTA, I love it. You guys talk about selling American workers down, I love it. It's like a warm, nutritious bowl of carrots and soup. And then you put in the anti-immigrant poop. And then I can't eat it because I don't agree about the anti-immigrant poop.
what I think is.
Let me just respond to that. I mean, Van just pretty much basically was, I guess, in agreement with Ann Coulter, saying both parties, both people on both sides, everybody's ticked off, everybody's pissed. But he said, then he basically said, when you talk about the border, when you talk about NAFTA, I love it. Talk about this, I love it. Warm bowl of soup, blah, 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 blah. But then he had to bring in what? Race. He had to bring in color. He had to add that to the soup recipe. And then he said, that's just a bunch of poop. And then I can't eat it. I don't love it anymore. I mean, this is exactly what happens when you don't have an argument to go to. What do you attack Republicans with? What do you attack conservatives with? What do you attack white people with? Especially if you consider yourself to be a minority or black. Or I don't know what Van Jones considers himself, if he's African American or a black American. But he considers himself to be what? A victim, not a victor, a victim. And so what do? Go the old standard, bring out the R card racist, bring out the B card bigot. That's what happens, folks. Anyways, let's continue.
It's been both parties saying that to voters. And I mean, that's what Bernie Sanders used to say. We need to protect American jobs. That's what Jesse Jackson used to stand and protest at the border. Whose jobs are being taken? Cesar Chavez, he was the one who originated the phrase wetbacks to protect the Hispanics who already lived here. Okay, boo Cesar Chavez, or you boo a fact. And as soon as Bernie started running for president, I would have agreed with him. I mean, if Trump hadn't come along on trade and on immigration, because he wanted to protect American jobs for the working class. And then as soon as he runs for office as a Democrat, and this is often what happens with both parties, well, okay, sorry, now you have to go speak to La Raza, and now you're for open borders. And that's exactly what happened. 2 weeks after he announced, he spoke to La Raza, changed his position 180 degrees. I think you see a lot of the same thing with Elizabeth Warren. If I listen to her rhetoric, her anti-Wall Street rhetoric, I am second to none in being, anti the bankers and Wall Street and plutocrats who really don't care about ordinary people. There has been a division of the haves and the have-nots like we have not seen in history before, and that is globalism. But as soon as you start running with one of those parties, you have to toe the line and suck up to Wall Street.
So let's talk about.
And that's exactly true. That's what happens. That's what made Donald Trump so great, because he basically, gave the middle finger, both hands. He did that and said, that's it. I'm outside the political sphere. But what happened? Is like you said, you're running. You've got your points. But then once you actually put that hat, toss it into the ring, especially if you're with the Democrat side, and let's say with the Republicans as well, but more so with the Democrats, identity politics come into play. Like she said, you go speak to the people, and then all of a sudden, what you said a few weeks ago, complete turnaround.
Well, globalism, right? You mentioned Brexit briefly. I'd be interested in both of your kind of opinions. If you think what happened in England is going to potentially come over here, or if you think it could manifest itself differently here.
I think it already has.
Yeah, you see it here.
Donald Trump got more votes than any Republican in history, and that is with the entire establishment denouncing him. This isn't how it's done, and no, you can't talk about these things. I mean, it really is amazing that it wasn't just the Democratic Party. It wasn't just the Republican Party. It was also the entire media. It's also the entire donor class, all telling him he can't talk about this stuff. And he wins more votes than any Republican in primary history.
Yeah, I think for me, the immigration stuff is very painful because I think I know this is not an abstract conversation for me. I'm very close to folks who are immigrants, who come from immigrant families, immigrant neighborhoods. I did a lot of my work in Oakland, in the Bay Area. I'm very close to a bunch of Muslims. And so for me, it's been very, very difficult this year. First of all, there's just been this complete erasure of even the most recent history. You said we've done nothing on the border. Au contraire. In fact, if you talk to the Latino community, they call President Obama the deporter-in-chief. And the reason they do that is because President Obama, trying to show Republicans that he could be tough on the border, trying to get a deal done, deported more people than any president has ever done, put more personnel and technology on the border than anyone has ever done. We have a net negative immigration now from Mexico, more Mexicans leaving than coming, and it still wasn't enough. The reason that the president then turns around and says, well, I use executive action to go against my own base, outrage my own base, destroy families in my own base, trying to show you that we could cut a deal. Now I'm going to use executive power to do something to try to make it a little bit better. But we can't even share facts. This is the first choose your news election. You pick your filter gives you your facts, and we can't even agree on the basics. It is not true that we have an open border. It is not true the president hasn't done anything. The problem is he got left at the altar when he did.
Well, this was Van Jones here basically now saying that Obama was, also did some things that he didn't appreciate. Now, the difference is that I didn't see Van Jones calling Obama a racist. I didn't see Van Jones using the word xenophobe, against brown people. And he's basically said that in his own base, in his own party, with the people that voted for him, with the Latino community, the Hispanic community, that he was called the deporter-in-chief. And there's something in terms of that, folks, all right? They changed the way that they talked about what deportations were. It used to be deportations were you're already in the country and, we deport you out. Obama and his administration changed the ruling to say somebody comes to the border, well, they just cross over the border or they're right at the gate and you turn them around, whether they step on American soil or not, they consider that a deportation. So, the numbers were great. Look at what he was doing. To try to, as Van Jones said, placate to Republicans and to the conservatives that, hey, Obama, he really is a big-time deporter. He really is getting rid of a lot of illegal aliens from here. Not true at all. Not true at all. But like I said, is Van Jones, with the veracity that he would attack Trump for being a xenophobe, being a bigot, being a racist, for saying that he would like to do the same thing for immigration that Obama's currently done for the past 8 years. Boy, you talk about calling the kettle black. I don't know about that. Anyways, we appreciate you taking time to watch. You've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I've been your host, Dr. Nasir. If you haven't already done so already, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, like, share, and follow us. Put your comments down below. Let us know what you think. I'll leave you with my final thought, which is, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. We'll see you again next time, folks. Take care and stay safe.